You wake up on a Saturday with a bowl of cereal, and your mom lets you eat breakfast and watch cartoons. Saturdays were always great because the TV aired new episodes of your favorite shows. These shows are Iron Man and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. You were so happy and you had a great idea that when you grow up, you'll be the Iron Turtle. This is the first of its kind. You feel like this is a genius idea, so when Monday comes and you go into your second grade class, you can't wait to share what you want to do when you grow up. The typical answers were, I want to be a cop and I want to be a doctor. So you share your answer. I want to be the Iron Turtle. Everyone laughs at you, calling you stupid. So you look at your teacher and she's laughing too. But it doesn't end there. Your teacher immediately calls your mother and asks her if you belong in the special needs class. This makes you very angry and you get mocked day after day. This makes you very angry, so you decide to join a combat sport to let this anger out in a healthy way. But you keep the nickname, the Iron Turtle. You are Jun Yong Park, and this is the Casual's Guide to Brad Tavares versus Jun Yong Park. Jun Yong Park is a middleweight fighter coming out of Seoul, South Korea. He was born February 27th, 1991, which makes him 33 years old. He stands 6 feet tall. He also trains at a decent gym called World Top Team. Jun made his professional debut in 2013 against Jae Young Kim, but took a loss by unanimous decision. Then Jun would get back-to-back wins in 2015. Then he would take his second loss by split decision. Win one more fight by technical knockout, making his opponent retire in the process. Then he would have the toughest matchup of his career against a future UFC star, Shavkat Rakhmonov, and lose by rear naked choke. At this point, he was 3-3 and things were looking bleak, but that didn't deter Jun from pursuing his MMA dreams. Jun would then go on a fantastic 7-fight win streak, beating Ray Cooper III in the process. And after his great win streak, he got the attention of the UFC and he would make his UFC debut in 2019 against Anthony Fluffy Hernandez. However, he would lose by a nasty anaconda choke just 4 minutes into the second round. He would then go on a 3-fight win streak after this tough debut and beat Marc-Andre Barriant, John Phillips, and Tafon Nchukwi, all by a unanimous decision win. Then he would fight a fan favorite and Gregory Rodriguez, also known as RoboCop, where he would get knocked out in the second round. But then Jun would go on a 4-fight win streak, beating the likes of Eric Anders, Joseph Holmes, and Dennis Tululin, and Albert Duraev. And in his most recent fight, that streak ended when he fought Andre Muniz and lost by split decision. Now he is fighting an extremely experienced veteran in Brad Tavares. Jun has a spotty record with 17 wins, 5 wins by knockout, 6 submission wins, and 6 decision wins, and 6 losses. He has been knocked out 1 time, submitted 2 times, and lost 3 decisions. And his record in the UFC is 7 wins and 3 losses, which isn't horrible by any means, but it definitely is not great. Now let's take a look at his opponent, Brad Tavares. Brad was born in Hawaii, December 21st, 1987, which obviously makes him 3 years older than Jun Yong Park. Brad is 1 inch shorter than Jun, with him being a solid 5 foot 11 inches tall. Brad also trains out of a very good gym in Extreme Couture. As you will see further into the video, the 3-year difference is made up with experience. In 2007, Tavares dove right into the deep end. Starting his fighting journey in the pros, he knocked out Thomas Sedana in 40 seconds in the very first round, and after that he went on a 5-fight win streak before getting a huge opportunity on The Ultimate Fighter Season 11, where he would make a name for himself. Making it to the semifinals, Tavares would beat Jordan Smith in the elimination fight by knockout just 45 seconds into the first round. Then he had another fight a week later, beating James Hammertree by unanimous decision. Then Tavares would naturally move on to the quarterfinals, fighting and beating Seth Baksinski, after Seth landed a illegal knee to a grounded opponent. After that blunder, where Seth got disqualified, he got a shot in the semifinals, fighting a well-known Court McGee. However, Tavares would lose by rear naked choke in the last round, but the UFC was impressed enough to sign Brad Tavares to the promotion. So with the rivalry that got started in The Ultimate Fighter with Seth Brzezinski, the UFC naturally had them both fight in a rematch on The Ultimate Fighter Season 11 finale. In 2011, Brad would go on to dominate this fight, winning by unanimous decision. After disposing of Seth, Brad would fight a convicted felon and rapist and a woman abuser, Phil Baroni. Brad would beat him worse than Phil beat his girlfriend in Mexico a year ago, knocking Baroni out cold 4 minutes and 20 seconds into the very first round. Then, Brad would go on to fight Aaron Simpson. This would be his very first loss. Brad lost to Simpson by unanimous decision, but Brad was very far from done. Brad would go on a 5-fight win streak, beating a couple popular fighters in Bubba McDaniel and Lorenz Larkin. But sadly, Brad would get matched up with a 2014 Yoel Romero. This was a very tough fight, and Brad would lose this fight by unanimous decision. Then, for the first time in Brad's career, he would lose 2 fights in a row when he fought Tim Bosch. He would get knocked out in the second round. Brad would get right back on track when he fought Nate Marquardt and won by unanimous decision, but this victory was short-lived when Brad would fight a future champion and legend of the sport, Robert the Reaper Whittaker. Brad would get knocked out in the very first round just 44 seconds in. After this devastating loss, Brad would go on a 4-fight win streak, beating the likes of Elias Theodoro, Dallas Latis, and Krzysztof Jotko. After getting a huge knockout over Jotko, Brad would go to fight another legend and future champion in the last style bender, Israel Adesanya. If you were watching back then, Israel would beat Brad in a very dominant decision, but Brad gave Israel a tough fight. So the UFC set up Brad to fight another prospect on the come-up, an Edmund Shabazian. But this would be a much tougher loss because Brad was knocked out with a head kick in the first round less than 3 minutes in. Brad would get back-to-back wins, beating Antonio Carlos Jr. and Amari Akhmedov. After these wins, Brad would fight another up-and-coming champion in Dricus du Plessis, and he took Dricus to a decision, but he unfortunately lost. After that loss, Brad would go on to fight Bruno Silva, but Brad was knocked out in the first round again. After a couple of months off, Brad would fight a future champion and legend in Chris Weidman. Brad would win this fight in a dominant decision, and in his last fight, after the huge win, he would fight Gregory Rodriguez, who also fought Jun Yong Park, and Brad would get knocked out by RoboCop in the third round. And that brings us to his current matchup with Jun Yong Park. Brad has had a very up and down career in my opinion. He fits the role as a gatekeeper to the top 15. Brad entered the UFC with an undefeated record, but he has had his biggest growths in skill and managed to make a career in the UFC, which is a rarity. And if you were paying attention, Brad's record is currently sitting at 20 wins and 9 losses. He has 5 wins by knockout, 2 submission wins, and 13 decision wins. And his losses have been tough. He has been knocked out 5 times and has lost 4 decisions. Overall, I'm picking the Iron Turtle, Jun Yong Park, to beat Brad. The Iron Turtle can crack with the best of them and is hard to knock out, but Brad does have way more experience and has fought much tougher competition over the years. So it's a pretty interesting matchup that I felt was worthy of a casual's guide because both guys are unknown to the casual fans. As always, if you guys enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I hope you guys enjoyed and have a fantastic week.